if they'll be in trouble or not. But it's about time for the movie review if you're ready.
Yep.
In a world of movie references flying over his head, one man will finally watch them. This is the Matt and Blonde Show movie review.
This week's movie is the 2001 portrayal of the 1993 Battle of Mogadishu, in which Army Rangers and Delta Force raid the city to capture a Somalian warlord and his top men who have been seizing international food aid and slaughtering civilians. But when air support is shot down, the mission flips from capture to rescue as U.S. forces take unexpectedly heavy resistance and casualties. From movie picker Matt P., great modern war movie, visually great with a good cast. As always, your review and your rating.
Oh, you froze up for a second. Is my connection dropping?
No, not mine didn't, but maybe to you it did.
Weird. Okay. So I don't know what war is like, but from what I know, this was just so realistic. Like, how did they get so many Somali extras? How did they do this? How did they create this trash town? Where was this filmed? Was it actually filmed in Mogadishu? It was so realistic.
No, it was not. It was filmed, I think I read like Morocco or something like that.
Oh, really? That makes sense. So many Somali. It was just so realistic. And I appreciated that it didn't blink when addressing the sheer savagery of these people. Like, there's that great scene where the general's talking to the warlord, and the warlord is like, the killing is never going to stop in this place. Like, it's this is how we are. This is our world. And I really liked that because it did make the viewer ask the question, like, well, what is the point of all of this? What is the point of this? Like, why? This is a useless loss of life for these soldiers. And these people are never going to be elevated beyond the situation that they're in because it's who they are. It's fundamentally who they are. Why are we there? What are we doing there? And I like that it addressed that. And the action sequences were unflinching and powerful, but there was this element of wartime levity, like the way that they spoke to each other, that made it not so depressing to watch, even though there was a lot of death. My only real criticism was that I was not a huge fan of the slow-mo scenes, but they were so few in number that I don't even know if that's a real criticism. Totally worth the 2.5 hours. Loved it. Fantastic film. 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. All right, we differ this time.
I knew you would like this.
But everybody knew I was going to give it a 5. So
you did? Okay.
And quite honestly, that's because I have it's not entirely because, but I have an emotional connection to this movie. This was one of my brother's favorite movies.
Really?
And so I love it too. I just do. But it's not just because I have this personal connection to it. I think that it is one of the most well presented, just one of the best presentations of kind of the visuals and the experience of modern warfare, but the philosophy of it too. I just think it's a fantastic movie from beginning to end. And I appreciate the visuals a lot, not just that it looks convincing. You mentioned how they were able to achieve that. These guys actually went to military training. They went to army training to do this. And it's not just that the combat and the gore effects look realistic. It's just some of the shot artistry too. I really like the shot, for example, with when Grimes gets hit by the RPG and you think he's finally dead and he's buried by all that debris, and there's this cool shot of his eye
and his teeth.
Oh, I got my bell rung, but I'm still alive. That was a cool moment. The Mogadishu Mile at the end, just the way that was shot, and you can almost feel the exhaustion of these guys. It's in this kind of cool blue tone, and it's a really incredible visual presentation throughout. But what I'm really fascinated with is its philosophical depiction of war. And you got at this a little bit because you kind of ask yourself, is this movie quote unquote pro-war, or is it quote unquote anti-war? You can kind of make the argument for both. You have this idealistic Eversman, who's Josh Hartnett's character, making the case that, look, these people are in big trouble. We can either help or we can watch them destroy themselves on CNN. And then you have this character, Hoot, who's one of the Delta Force guys, just talking about, listen, My opinion doesn't matter when the bullets are flying. The politics and shit doesn't matter. Also, don't concern yourself with who died when and where and why, because it's just war, man. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it just happens. Yeah.
So there are these competing perspectives about the merits of the war throughout it. And then you wonder, is it a happy ending? Is it a sad ending, or both? The mission itself, as you mentioned, it accomplished very little. Aidid, the Somali warlord man, he remained in power. Somalia, of course, remained a shithole country.
Yep.
The U.S. gained nothing more than Ilhan Omar in Congress. And Mogadishu continued destroying itself on CNN, regardless of those boots on the ground.
Yeah.
But even Hoot's less idealistic perspective recognized, listen, man, people think we're doing this for like patriotism or some morally righteous cause. It's really just about the guy next to you. That's all it is. It's about the brotherhood, the camaraderie, and the survival of the guy next to you.
Yep.
And that's what I love about this movie. It captures all of those contradictions, because the truth is war is always a mess of contradictions. It can be both necessary and wasteful.
Exactly.
At the same time, it can be the heroics of brave men on the ground acting under the command of complete cowards. And there can be very meaningful victories in the context of very damaging defeats, and vice versa. So it's just a movie that really perfectly presents the courage and the sacrifice of the grunt while hating the incompetence and the selfishness of the command. And I think that's kind of a fundamental truth that holds for most armed conflicts.
How did this happen? Was it just the General Garrison's incompetence? Did he underestimate the forces, or like the sheer number of people? I
don't know a lot about the history of the command decisions. So that's something I'll have to read a little bit more about. I do know, at least per the book that this is based on, it's reasonably historically accurate. And that's another thing I appreciated. You could write, as the book does, chapter on chapter about all the different guys involved in this, but those two who posthumously won the Medal of Honor, so that was Gordon and Shugart, the guys who insist on being inserted to go tend to that second down pilot, and they just face the Somali mob until they're shot dead. That really happened. They reportedly killed 25 Somalis. It's one thing to go into a place where bad things could happen. I don't mean to diminish the service of anybody who participated that day, but these guys knew what sort of hell they were dropping into, and they did it anyway. And I can't imagine that hell itself has a lot of worse fates than the way that they died.
I can't believe they released that prisoner.
Yeah, that's the only thing I have to say that I don't necessarily like about this movie, which I'll get to in just a minute.
Oh, sorry.
But Randy Shugart, one of those Delta Force snipers who was posthumously given the Medal of Honor. I was reading about that. His dad attended the Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House and ripped Bill Clinton. He refused to shake Bill Clinton's hand. He said, "You're not fit to be president of the United States. The blame for my son's death rests with the White House and with you. You are not fit to command."
Ooh.
Damn. And the other thing I love about this movie is just it's a movie that made its cast. Every scene, you're like, hey, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh, look, it's Legolas. Oh, look, it's Jaime Lannister. And I know that some of these guys were names kind of before this movie, but it just, there's a lot of success that came out of this movie. And you have to wonder, well, some characters that we all know and love might be totally different people, totally different actors, at least, if it wasn't for this movie. Yeah. The only thing I wouldn't even go as far as to say I don't like, but the pilot's story just kind of gets closed by a footnote. It's like, he was let out shortly thereafter, and it's
As soon as he was captured, I was like, oh, that guy's gonna get tortured and killed. And then at the end, I was like, what?
Yeah,
really?
And it is true that it was somewhat uneventful. He was released from Somali custody 11 days later. They just Aidid just let him go to the Red Cross. So I guess I'm not sure. I'm not exactly clear, but and I suppose if that's the truth, there's not really a way to present that in a really compelling way in the movie without maybe distorting it or exaggerating it. So maybe that was the reason they made that decision. But and the other thing is his scene where he's just sitting there with his broken legs and his MP5. He's just kind of shooting Somalis through the wall. I love the MP5 for so many different reasons, but there's no handier self-defense tool when you have broken legs in Mogadishu than the MP5. And so, of course, it is a 5-wiki production for me.
We love you. You're very special.
And full disclosure, as you probably could guess, I went into this pre-deciding it was a 5-wiki production, but I enjoyed it just as much. This is the first time I've watched it in probably about 10 years. And I enjoyed it as much as I did back closer to when it came out. So, fantastic. And this was when I still have my movie list. If we ever put it up for a vote, Black Hawk Down was on it. So that's one off the list.
That's cool.
So let me refresh and see what the early audience vote is. People love this movie. In fact, an outright majority, 55% of the early vote giving it a 5. So there's one son of a bitch out there out of 107 early votes. I'm talking to you, who gave it a 1 wiki.
You bastard.
You know who you are. You know who you are. After that, next week is Galaxy Quest. And I guess you're going to give me a Star Trek episode I'm supposed to watch beforehand.
Yay!
Okay, so I will oblige.
That is great.
And then after that, April's remaining nominees from listener Amanda are 12 Angry Men, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, Pitch Black, The Iron Giant, Apollo 13, True Grit, the 2010 version, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or of course, you can reject the list and vote for a randomly selected top-rated movie instead. So be sure to head over to my movie review column to vote. And as a reminder, if you'd like to read my movie reviews, comment how wrong I am, submit your own rating, vote for the next movie, and sign up for the chance to be the movie nominator for the month, the one and only place to do it is in my weekly movie review column, linked in the description and on the homepage of the website. That is mattchristiansenmedia.com.